English talking practice. Leo often felt a silent ache. He understood English perfectly, grasping complex articles and enjoying intricate movie plots. Yet, when faced with an actual conversation, his mind would seize. The words he knew so well would vanish, leaving only a frustrating void. He often mused, "I understand English, but I can't speak well at all." This recurring problem created a wall between him and genuine connection. He could follow discussions with ease. His comprehension was top-notch, absorbing every nuance. But the moment it was his turn to contribute, to articulate his own thoughts or opinions, a strange paralysis set in. His tongue felt heavy, his brain empty. He yearned for the effortless flow he observed in others. They spoke with such natural rhythm, their sentences gliding smoothly without hesitation or awkward pauses. Leo envied this fluid expression, wondering if such a level of fluency was truly attainable for someone like him. His self-doubt grew with each missed opportunity to speak. One day, while browsing an old library, he stumbled upon an unassuming pamphlet. Its title caught his eye immediately: "Unlock Your Voice: Simple Steps to English Fluency." Skeptical yet hopeful, he picked it up, feeling a faint glimmer of possibility. Perhaps this worn document held the answers he desperately sought. The pamphlet was authored by a retired linguistics professor, Dr. Evelyn Thorne. Her opening lines resonated deeply with Leo's struggle. She empathized with those who understood English, but faltered when speaking. Her words offered not just techniques, but also a comforting understanding of the common frustration learners face daily. Dr. Thorne's first crucial piece of advice was profound yet simple: why you must listen. She emphasized that listening was far more than just comprehending words. It involved absorbing the melody of the language, the stress patterns, the intonation of native speakers, and the natural pauses that give speech its organic quality. She explained that our brains subconsciously map these auditory patterns. When we listen actively, our minds begin to internalize the correct pronunciations and rhythm. This deep immersion in authentic sounds trains our vocal apparatus even before we utter a single word. It's the bedrock of natural-sounding speech. Her next big tip was revolutionary for Leo: learn English through stories. Dr. Thorne advocated for engaging with narratives, not just dry textbooks. Stories provide context, emotion, and natural conversational patterns, making learning enjoyable and memorable. They allow learners to immerse themselves in a world where language lives. She suggested reading stories aloud, acting out dialogues, or even retelling simple narratives in one's own words. This practice, she argued, bridged the gap between passive understanding and active production. It made the language come alive, transforming it from abstract rules into a dynamic tool for expression. Leo began with short fables, reading them slowly, then faster, trying to mimic the intonation he heard in audiobooks. He narrated his daily chores to himself, imagining he was explaining them to an invisible audience. It felt awkward at first, but he persevered, following Dr. Thorne's guidance precisely. The pamphlet then moved into practical, let me tell you talking tips, designed for immediate application. These weren't grand theories, but actionable steps for everyday life. Leo felt a surge of hope. Finally, concrete methods to tackle his speaking anxiety were laid out clearly before him: ready for implementation. The first tip was surprisingly simple, yet profoundly impactful. Start talking at home. Dr. Thorne advised practicing speaking in a private, low-pressure environment. This eliminated the fear of judgment, allowing learners to experiment freely with new vocabulary and sentence structures without self-consciousness holding them back. Leo decided to dedicate 15 minutes every morning to talking to himself in the mirror. He described his breakfast, commented on the weather, or summarized his plans for the day. At first, it felt ridiculous, but soon he found himself articulating thoughts he hadn't realized he possessed in English. He even started narrating mundane tasks, like making coffee or tidying his room. "First, I pour the water, then I add the coffee grounds," he'd whisper, forming complete sentences. This continuous internal monologue, verbalized, began to rewire his brain, making the transition from thought to speech smoother and more automatic. Dr. Thorne's second key piece of advice was listen and practice. She emphasized the cyclical nature of effective language acquisition. It wasn't enough to just listen. One had to actively engage with the sounds and then immediately try to reproduce them, reinforcing the auditory input with motor output. She recommended shadowing, a technique where one listens to a native speaker and tries to repeat their words almost simultaneously. This trains both the ear and the mouth, synchronizing comprehension with articulation. It's a powerful exercise for developing natural rhythm and pronunciation. Leo found podcasts particularly useful for this. He would listen to a short segment, then pause and attempt to repeat what was said, paying close attention to speed and intonation. He wouldn't worry about perfection, focusing instead on mirroring the flow and general sound of the speaker. Another powerful technique was to listen to a short story or news report, then summarize it aloud in his own words. This forced him to process information and then reformulate it actively. It pushed him beyond mere repetition, encouraging creative and independent thought expression in English. The pamphlet also highlighted the importance of observing how people speak English. Dr. Thorne encouraged learners to pay attention not just to grammar, but to the natural nuances of conversation, pauses, fillers, common expressions, and even body language that accompanies speech in various social contexts. She suggested watching interviews, documentaries, and unscripted conversations, noting how people start and end sentences, how they express agreement or disagreement, and how they use informal language in casual settings. This observation helped Leo understand the authentic, living aspects of English communication. He started noticing how people used interjections like, uh-huh, or you know, to maintain flow. He observed their varied tone of voice when asking questions versus making statements. These subtle yet crucial details were absent from his grammar books, but abundant in real-life interactions. Leo began incorporating these observations into his practice. When talking to himself, he'd try out different conversational fillers or expressions he'd heard. He practiced varying his tone to convey different emotions, adding a layer of authenticity to his solitary English conversations at home. The overall theme of the pamphlet was consistent, English talking practice. Dr. Thorne stressed that consistent, deliberate practice was the only true path to fluency. It wasn't about innate talent, but about daily effort and strategic application of techniques. every little bit of practice accumulated. She warned against the trap of perfectionism, encouraging learners to embrace mistakes as part of the learning process. The goal was communication, not flawless grammar in every utterance. This shift in mindset was liberating for Leo, easing the pressure he constantly felt to be perfect. Armed with these new strategies, Leo committed to a daily regimen. He designated specific times for listening, shadowing, retelling stories, and his private talking-at-home sessions. This structured approach brought discipline to his previously haphazard attempts at speaking. He recorded himself occasionally, listening back to identify areas for improvement. It was humbling to hear his own voice, but also incredibly insightful. He noticed his repeated hesitations, certain mispronunciations, and areas where his sentence structure felt unnatural, guiding his future practice sessions. The initial days were challenging. Sometimes he felt foolish talking to himself, or frustrated when his tongue still fumbled over simple phrases. The urge to give up was strong on several occasions. Yet, Dr. Thorne's encouraging words echoed in his mind, urging persistence and patience. He reminded himself that English talking practice was a marathon, not a sprint. Every awkward sentence, every stumbled word, was a step forward, a necessary part of building the muscular memory for speech. He focused on small victories, celebrating tiny improvements daily. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, Leo began to notice changes. His internal monologue became more articulate. The words flowed more readily from his mind to his mouth during his solo sessions. The gap between understanding and speaking started to shrink, brick by laborious brick. He found himself thinking in English more often, not just translating from his native language. This shift in cognitive processing was a huge breakthrough. It meant the language was becoming more integrated into his core thought patterns, a sign of genuine progress toward fluency. The awkward pauses diminished. He started using more natural filler words and expressions he had picked up from listening. His pronunciation gained a new level of clarity and confidence. The fear of making mistakes began to recede, replaced by a growing eagerness to communicate. One afternoon, he spontaneously joined a casual online discussion group for English learners. Before, he would have meticulously planned every sentence, but this time, he simply listened for a while, then chimed in with a question. His words came out more smoothly than ever. The conversation flowed, and to his astonishment, he found himself contributing naturally. He wasn't translating in his head. He was thinking and speaking directly in English. It was a momentous occasion, a tangible proof that his persistent English talking practice was truly yielding results. He realized the power of consistent listen and practice. By actively absorbing the language and then immediately attempting to reproduce it, he had trained his brain and mouth to work in sync. This continuous feedback loop was essential for building automaticity in speech. His confidence soared. He started seeking out more opportunities to speak, no longer dreading conversations but looking forward to them. He engaged with native speakers online, joined local meetup groups, and even offered to help other learners, sharing his journey and tips. Leo truly understood now how to improve your fluency. It wasn't a magic trick or a secret formula. It was a combination of deliberate listening, active practice, courage to speak, and consistent immersion in the language, especially by starting to use it actively at home. He often thought back to his initial frustration, recalling how he'd felt trapped by his inability to speak despite his understanding. Now, that feeling was a distant memory. He could articulate complex ideas, share jokes, and participate fully in conversations. His journey demonstrated that understanding is the foundation, but speaking is the construction. You need to actively build the speaking muscle. Passive knowledge, however vast, remains inert until activated through repeated, intentional vocalization. This was his core realization. The advice to start talking at home proved invaluable. It removed the external pressure and allowed him to build a solid base of spoken English in a safe environment. This initial comfort translated into greater confidence when he eventually stepped into public conversations. He learned that how people speak English isn't just about grammar rules, but about the natural, often imperfect, flow of human communication. Observing this made his own speech more authentic and less robotic. He embraced natural pauses and common expressions. The emphasis on why you must listen became crystal clear. Listening wasn't just for comprehension, it was for internalizing the very rhythm and music of English. This deep immersion prepared his mouth and mind for natural, fluid production, laying a crucial subconscious foundation. Learn English through stories made the process enjoyable and meaningful. Instead of rote memorization, he was connecting with narratives, which naturally embedded vocabulary and grammar in a memorable context. Stories transformed tedious study into an exciting adventure, fostering genuine interest. He realized that the pamphlets, "Let me tell you talking tips," were more than just tips. They were a holistic approach to conquering speaking anxiety. They addressed not just the mechanics of language, but also the psychological barriers that often impede learners' progress. Leo's story became an inspiration to others who echoed his old lament, "I understand English, but I can't speak well." He shared his journey, emphasizing the importance of daily, consistent effort and the transformative power of the seemingly small steps he had taken. He stressed that everyone could improve your fluency by following a structured and patient approach. It wasn't about innate talent, but about breaking down the big goal into manageable, repeatable actions that build confidence and competence over time. His message was clear: English speaking is a skill. Like any skill, it requires deliberate practice, not just passive absorption. You can know all the rules, but you must put them into action consistently and without fear of making mistakes in the process. He encouraged people to find their own rhythm, whether it was through shadowing, role-playing, or simply narrating their day. The key was to make speaking a regular, even daily, part of their English learning routine, ensuring constant engagement with the spoken word. Leo now participated in lively debates, effortlessly expressing nuanced opinions. He recounted humorous anecdotes, his timing and delivery perfect. His voice, once hesitant, now carried a confident, natural cadence that seamlessly blended with native speakers. It was truly remarkable. His transformation was a testament to the power of persistent English talking practice and the wisdom gleaned from Dr. Thorne's invaluable pamphlet. He was no longer just a listener. He was a communicator, fully engaged with the language, he once only understood silently. He continued to advocate for active listening, reminding learners that the ear is the gateway to the tongue. The more natural sounds you absorb, the more naturally your own speech will develop. It's a continuous cycle of input and output, refining your linguistic skills. Leo often told people, "Don't wait for perfection. Start now, imperfectly, but consistently." This philosophy, born from his own struggle and eventual triumph, resonated deeply with many. The journey to fluency begins with that first, often awkward, spoken word. He emphasized that even 5 minutes of start talking at home daily was more effective than hours of passive listening alone. It's the active production that solidifies learning and builds the neural pathways necessary for spontaneous speech. Consistency truly is paramount. His advice on how people speak English transformed how learners perceived native speakers. Instead of just focusing on vocabulary, they started observing the entire communication event, including gestures, expressions, and the underlying cultural nuances of conversation flow. Leo's story is a powerful reminder that speaking proficiency isn't about intelligence, but about courage and consistent application of proven techniques. He transformed his biggest weakness into his greatest strength, becoming a truly fluent and confident English speaker. He embodies the idea that anyone can bridge the gap between understanding and speaking. His journey provides a clear roadmap, proving that with strategic English talking practice and a commitment to listen and practice, fluency is not just a dream, but an attainable reality for everyone.